Things I know. Marj understood that doing for others enhanced and elevated her existence, a practice understood by few and acted on by fewer. She gave and gave and gave. And when it was her time, she still was concerned about the people around her more than herself.
She came to Southern Current, of course, in 1978, where she taught special ed. She was special ed for Southern Current. There was no past, so she developed the program as she saw fit. She had come from working in Los Angeles, in the Riverside area with the blind and the deaf kids and stuff. And she brought a very unique view of education when she came to visit us. The first time she walked in my classroom, she came up to me, and I thought I was a hotshot teacher at that time, probably 24, 25 years old. She came up to me and said, "Boy, you sure messed that up today." I said, "Okay, hi, who are you?" I've been here a couple of years, I think I know what I'm doing. And she said, "Well, you use several analogies that your class doesn't understand." I said, "Oh, for example, that little boy sitting there in the front seat, he doesn't have an idea." I was talking about the beach. I just come from Santa Barbara. I was talking about the ocean, and the blue, and the ocean, and the water, and the smell. And he says, he's never seen the ocean. How could you dare talk to him? He understands you. And that was our relationship a lot of times. How dare you do that? Or why did you do that?
All those little things, those puffy peanut things you guys did.
All the peanuts?
Yeah. When we come in, my desk would be full of them.
Never. Goodness. I do know Marj had that streak in her of honesty and of a little bit of play once in a while, because that was part of the way you entertained yourselves between working with the kids. And it was a serious job, and Marj took the job very seriously, although some days you probably couldn't tell when you watched us play.
Dick and I were, I had science, and I taught PE, and I was a football coach and track coach. And she would always come over and wonder what we were doing. And I says, "Well, how can you do anything wrong when all we do is X's and O's?" That's football stuff. Right?
That's right, X's and O's.
So we didn't have to be too sharp, but as we know, she was, and Marj's brother, John, right? John?
Yes.
I'm glad to see that humor is just not Marj, it's in the family. She had an infectious laugh, and Dick said, when you were talking about it being across the hall from you, when I took over for you when you left Tropico, she would just kind of beam over there and let you take care of things, and then when it really got bad, and there's, sometimes you get around people, as Marj says, you just don't want anything to do with them. Well, those are the kind I used to try to give to Marj. Right?
Absolutely, I do too.
And at the end of the day, I says, I give up on this, I just got to go for a drive. And she said, "Well, you're not leaving me here, I'm going with you." So we jump in the truck and we go for a drive. And then I started thinking about, wait a minute, does your husband know if we're going on a drive? Because he carries a gun.
Thank you all for being here. My name is Christian Elston, and I was asked to give a brief testimony as to how Marj has been a blessing to me. Honestly, to describe exactly to what extent she meant to me would be impossible, so I'm just going to try my best. Marj was the person next to my family in Jesus Christ who impacted me beyond anything and anyone else. She was my teacher, she was my mentor, she was my best friend, and most importantly, she was like my second mom, and I loved her as such. I was 8 years old when I first met Marj, when I approached her and Lee looking for some yard work to do. They agreed to have me over to do some tasks in their yard. Little did I know what I was getting myself into. Marj started me off taking care of their dogs and weeding the flower beds and such. But then she started teaching me new things, like how to drive a tractor, how to care and trim their roses and their trees, and how to lay their irrigation lines. Our most formidable battle, though, was trying to get me to talk and work at the same time. It took a lot of time and a lot of patience on her part, but we finally succeeded in breaking my curse.
Over those years that Marj and I worked together, we shared several things. We shared a love for photography. We shared a meal whenever we ate out together because neither of us could eat a whole one. We shared a room at our staff retreats. We shared a love for flowers. We shared an office. And somebody just reminded me about a funny story about us sharing an office. I hadn't even thought about it till just before I walked up here. But Marj was always cold, and I was always hot. So sharing an office was a challenging feat. Well, right before we moved into the new building, I kept saying, this office is so hot, there has to be a problem. So we have this little gun that tells you the temperature when you shoot it up at the, thing. We shoot it up there and it's like 80 degrees and all the other ones are like 65. And I'm like, there's something wrong up there. So we go and we take the register down. Marj had gotten a sweatshirt out of the lost and found and stuffed it up in there so the air conditioning wouldn't come out.
Most of my memories of Marj took place in this church, Glendower as well. Sunday morning, you can find her back there in the sound booth, just doing her thing beforehand, helping out up here. And during the week, you can find her in her office, just on the other side. Marj was all about finishing his work, and she did that in many areas. She was involved in EE. She was a bookkeeper. She did tutoring, Bible studies, worship, sound, taking care of the needs of God's people. This included the ones that didn't know yet. They didn't know him yet. She had the ability to love all people. And this reminds me of this one Sunday night. This person walked in, it was a man, and came all the way down to the front, sat right there where Joe is. And I don't think he'd taken a shower in a while, and it looked like he had all his clothes in this bag. And as soon as church was over, she went right down, right to him, like she had known him for a long time. And she just started ministering to him, and she started sharing the gospel. And if you would have saw the man, I was a little nervous, but Marj wasn't. That's just the type of person she was.
For me, this time is a point of faith. Every time someone near gets a promotion, I must drag myself like a little child to the throne and say, God, I'm not ready to let go. And so I come with my restless heart as a little child to say, once again, your will be done, regardless of how I feel. Knew Marj for about probably 25 years, and I watched her be molded by the grace of God, and I watched her mold us early in those years. One of Marj's greatest desires was for Lee to come to know Christ. We prayed for that for a lot of years, and God brought that to pass.
Disregarding the sword, and once it was broken,